Welcome to the second in a series of conference calls by USINPAC in advance of the 2014 elections next month in India. My name is John, and I'll be your moderator for this conference call. If you are logged in through WebEx, you will have seen the instructions for this call and submitting questions. With such a large call, we hope you understand that we cannot let everyone ask questions, which is why the attendees are muted. We ask that you submit your questions via email or through our email address or registration sign-up bit.ly. The email address is election2014@usimpac.com. The bit.ly is http://bit.ly/1IB1LPR. We'll be monitoring both of these portals during the call. Without further ado, I'd like to now introduce Chairman Sanjay Puri.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here for the second in our weekly series of talking to election experts. It's a unique look at the Indian elections. As we have said, these are very consequential elections for India. I would say one of the most consequential elections, not just for India, but for the dynamic between the U.S.-India relationship, but also across the world. It is going to impact economic policy in India and between nations. It's going to impact foreign policy, geopolitical issues like terrorism, and energy cooperation. So our perspective was that we give folks an idea to really understand what's happening at the ground level in India, just not away from the sound bites from some of the top experts, irrespective of their party ideology, but people who really understand India at the ground level. It is also a unique opportunity for people in the United States across the board to engage with these folks. We've had an overwhelming response from Indian Americans, from people on Capitol Hill, from governor offices, from policy think tank experts, and it has just been overwhelming. And we hope to continue this, and we will continue this every week. These sessions are recorded in a podcast for review. So without much further ado, I'll turn it over to Rabinder, who's going to take it from here. Rabinder?
Thank you so much, Sanjay. Thank you so much, Sanjay. And once again, we welcome all our guests. Without much ado, we do have our first expert speaker, analyst, Mr. Yashwant Deshmukh for us. The total session for this conference call is 45 minutes, and the first half will be, an analysis by Mr. Deshmukh and some of his comments and answers to the various questions that we are getting, and we are really getting a wide variety of questions. Without much ado, may I invite Mr. Deshmukh for his starting thoughts and comments, please, on the election scenario in India.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope all of you are getting my voice very clear. I am getting an echo of my voice. Is that okay? Or
I am getting an okay one, but John would perhaps know better. We are getting an okay. You are in Dubai, I understand, or in South Africa maybe right now.
Yeah, I'm in Johannesburg right now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir. We can hear you just fine.
All right, so I will continue because I am getting a voice back. I am hearing myself.
You're good. You're good, sir. You can just go ahead when you're ready.
No, I'm still getting it. Anyways, don't worry, I will continue. So thank you all of you for being here. This particular election, which all of us are following with a lot of interest, I would say that this is more of a continuation of what was left unfinished in 2004, because the 2004 defeat of the NDA went much unexplained. Because it was a surprise defeat for the NDA, and more than the NDA, it was a surprise victory for the UPA, which continued in 2009 as well, and 10 years of incumbency. I would still see this entire election going into more of an anti-Congress mode rather than any pro any other party mode. So those who understand India and have seen the previous elections, maybe then I would like to just compare it with the 1977 elections The only difference being that in 1977, the Congress was routed in the north, routed in the east. But in 1977, the Congress numbers were still graceful even after the defeat due to the south and the west region. What has changed between 1977 and 2014 is that Congress is Congress is facing a bigger rout in the south and bigger rout in the west. So this is looking like more like a meltdown of the grand old party of India. And it's a global phenomena, that a historical phenomena, that the leadership vacuum never actually remains there for long, and people just fill it up with some of the other leadership. I think this vacuum of leadership has pulled in Narendra Modi big time at the center stage, and all of a sudden we are finding him larger than life big time in the last 1.5 to 2 years period. So that's pretty much what it looks like right now. It's gonna be a complete Congress debacle. That is for sure. Who comes in? That's the big question. At the moment, as per my numbers, my polls are suggesting it should be the BJP, it should be the NDA with Narendra Modi in the chair.
Thank you. Maybe there's a question which we had, which has come in through our, one of our guests. What is the probability that India will get a stable government, which probably, as you're implying, would be the NDA government? But what is the probability that it would be a stable government after these elections?
Very high probability of being a stable government, because if you look at the numbers, even going by the most conservative polls, basically mine is the most conservative poll. I'm giving the lowest number to the BJP and NDA, which is hovering around 230 to 35, which is short of about 40 odd seats. But there are 6 kingmakers, as you can say. If the BJP and the NDA doesn't really get the majority, then there are 6 kingmakers. There are 3 gentlemen, the 3 ladies. The 3 gentlemen are Orissa Naveen Patnaik, Jagan Mohan Reddy in Simandhra, and Telangana Rashtra Samiti Chandrasekhar Rao in Telangana. Out of these 3, Naveen Patnaik is already the chief minister, in very well on the road to become with another term in this particular election, and going to be the chief minister again. Jagan Mohan Reddy is very much likely to be the chief minister of Simandhra, and Chandrasekhar Rao is very much likely to be the chief minister of the Telangana. These 3 gentlemen will have roughly about what you can say 50 odd seats between them, 45 seats between them. And the 3 ladies are Jayalalitha, Mamata Banerjee, and Mayawati. Again, Mamata Banerjee and Jayalalitha are the chief ministers, and Mayawati is not the chief minister, but even today, if the elections are held in UP, probably she is going to get back her chief minister chair. So between these 3 ladies, they are going to have roughly about 75 seats in between them, 60 to 75 seats. So all these leaders who have the capacity or who will have a say in the center are either chief minister themselves, or they are going to be the chief ministers in the next 2 months. And all of them are pretty business sensible. They need good relation with the center. And they don't have any pro-Congress mandate, or they don't have any comfort level with the Congress whatsoever it's kind. So they have to do business with whomsoever is coming in the center, and they have to support. And between them, it's about 125 seats in total. While BJP or NDA, even if they fall short, it will be roughly about 35 to 40 seats. So there is enough cushion. And I don't see any problem in having a stable government.
Excellent. Thank you. We just have a question coming from our one of our guests from California. I believe he or she is asking that. Sorry, she is asking that. You said the situation is unfinished business from the year 2004 when UPA 1 started. The question is, how best can a country, or can the country, come back from a hiatus of 10 years in development?
Well, in terms of policy, well, it's a good question. You see, I look at it this way. What is it that you like to remember from whatsoever the 6 years the NDA got? And what is it that this economy has gone to dogs even after having Manmohan Singh as the Prime Minister and likes of Pranoda and likes of Chidambaram being the Finance Minister and Montek Singh Ahluwalia in the Planning Commission? For any market guy, this could be the dream team. Still, the economy has got dogs. So certainly there is something is missing somewhere in terms of a long-term perspective, long-term planning. And I think what Vajpayee had delivered big time in his 6 years was one big thing, that was roads. And roads, that entire project of Golden Quadrangle or the Prime Minister village road schemes and other things, that had a direct impact or direct relation with the agrarian economy of this country. Without keeping or taking into account the agrarian economy, whatever economy you can think of India would be superficial and cosmetic. So far in the last 10-15 years, we have seen that we have a tendency to overdo or overanalyze the sentiment on the service sector or manufacturing sector to a certain extent. But I think it's a flawed idea of looking at Indian economy from these two sectors. Eventually, it has to be the agricultural sector that needs to be taken up. Without that, Indian economy doesn't revive from the bottom of the pyramid. And unfortunately, in the last 10 years, because of the legacy of Vajpayee, I think the biggest blunder that the UPA did was to go slow on the roads scheme, was to go slow on the rural infrastructure scheme, and was to go slow on the river interlinking projects. Same was with the idea of how to procure and how to go for FDI in the retail sector so that the farming sector can get more benefited out of it in a controlled way, so that the more warehouses can be constructed and that way it can be taken forward. So I feel that Vajpayee as a visionary had everything in terms of agrarian economy in his mind, and that's what he worked on. What the UPA lost sight of was this particular thing. Be it road, be it FDI in the retail, be it the river interlinking project. These are the projects which take the country's economy in the right direction for the next 2 to 3 decades, if they are rolled out properly. I think if BJP or the NDA gets into power, they would love to kickstart those kind of things again, which were initiated by Vajpayee. And that for the next 2 decades or 3 decades would put the economy back on track, slow and steady, but certainly in the right direction.
Great. Thank you so much. We have another question coming in from Mr. Sachin Tumala. I think that's based out of Texas. The question, I think, kind of dovetails into the previous answer or the explanation that you were giving, analysis. The question is, addressing the 100 million new eligible voters, how are the political parties targeting this constituency through their election manifestos? That is, which political party is addressing entrepreneurship and job creation with clarity better than others in its manifestos, and how?
I hate to say that, but none. Actually, India remains a graveyard for entrepreneurs. It's pretty much a chronic capitalist state. People are looking hopefully towards Narendra Modi for a simple reason that everybody has heard about the success stories in Gujarat, without realizing that Gujarat has been traditionally by its DNA an entrepreneur state. Gujaratis were and are and will remain entrepreneurs by nature. So it's nothing to do with the policy at the moment, I would say, but it's generally the high hope towards Modi that people are looking forward that if this guy comes in, then it will be better for the entrepreneurs. But in terms of policies, I think so much of drastic changes have to be done in India to make it more business friendly, to make it more entrepreneur friendly. I still don't see anybody in complete terms talking about this.
Thank you. We have another question from Mr. Narendra Desai out of Alexandria, Virginia. He's asking, Kejriwal is against corruption. Then why is he so much against BJP, wherein Mr. Modi is also corruption?
That's something which Mr. Kejriwal has to decide, but I think he has lost the focus on the main battle that he had started with. I'm not making any individual comment on anybody, but I think
entry of Mr. Kejriwal in politics actually diluted the entire strength of the Anna movement. Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, please. We can hear you, please.
We can hear.
All right. So all of a sudden my echo stopped, so I thought
no, that's
wrong. That's good actually. Entry of Kejriwal into politics, he's making this Aam Aadmi Party actually dented the entire campaign, entire movement that Anna Hazare movement had done for India against corruption and galvanizing the Indians at large for campaigning against corruption. Now, after Delhi, even if he has formed the party and got the seats in Delhi, he got a chance. I think he should have governed for 6 months, shown better results in terms of governance. But all of a sudden, I believe that the idea of a corruption-free governance gave way to more individual desire to go national or to aim at the prime ministership chair, and all of a sudden the focus was not anti-corruption but became anti-Modi. So it's really surprising when leaders of Aam Aadmi Party like Kejriwal or Yogendra Yadav, when they say our main and bigger enemy is Modi, not corruption, or bigger enemy is communalism, not corruption. So the goalpost has shifted. I believe that they are trying to harvest the possibility that people are angry with Congress, and there are a large number of people who are angry with the Congress but still might not be comfortable with Modi. So why not aim at that and go for it? But I don't see them actually securing their graphic. Delhi also is going down. In January they were almost touching 50% votes. In February, they came down about 5-6%. And in our current poll, they have came down another 5-6%. So a drop of almost 10 to 15% in 2 months gap is a dramatic decline, as dramatic as there was rise. So they have lost the momentum. This is what my feeling is. And why they have done it, why they went ballistic into politics, why they went for a party, why they weakened the entire Anna thing, it's up to Kejriwal to answer himself. But I don't see any other reason rather than probably a personal ambition behind it.
Thank you. We have a question coming in from Boston from Radha Kushibotla. Her question is, and talking about probability and chances exactly, her question is, what are the chances for the BJP to have a landslide victory? That is, without a coalition government, so that it can avoid a weakened or a compromised coalition. Any chances of a landslide?
Isn't that, in the first part of the post system, hello?
Yes, please, we can hear you. Yes, thanks.
Okay. In the first part of the post system, the vote share and seat share arithmetic doesn't really go hand in hand. So there is an outside chance because not because that BJP is gaining big time, but probably because of the complete meltdown of the Congress that we are actually witnessing at the moment. So, for example, in Madhya Pradesh, if I am projecting 23 seats to BJP and 6 seats to Congress, it is very much possible that it might eventually end up at 29-0 because BJP is crossing almost 50% vote share in Madhya Pradesh and Congress is hovering at 30%. There is almost a gap of 20-odd percent, 18-20%. Same is the situation in Rajasthan, where if I am projecting a probability of 20 to BJP and 5 to Congress, there is a very high chance that it might end up eventually as 25-0 for the BJP. So if you look at these kind of situations, I cannot rule out an outside probability of NDA getting a majority on its own. However, I mean, I am a conservative pollster. I always, I've never done landslides projections that way because I feel that my job as a pollster is primarily to get my vote share correct and pick up the winner correct. So I would say that I have picked up the winner, BJP, NDA, and Narendra Modi as the winner. How big the mandate is going to be, that is something of a matter of speculation because all a survey or the poll actually gives you is the vote share. It doesn't really give you the seat share. Converting votes into seats is more of an arithmetic. Everybody has its own algorithm and like that. That's why I find doing my poll predictions in US actually easier. Last presidential elections when I was working over there for the UPI, I figured out it was much more easier than doing an election poll in India.
Thanks. Okay. In fact, that leads to a small, quick question which has also come in from one of our callers. They're asking how accurate do you think the polling industry, and since you're of course one of the leading pollsters, how accurate do you think the poll industry or the polling industry is in India? That is, you know, the predictions that
it's a difficult one because we had a 2004 debacle, you know, where all of us had actually were eating crows. You must try to understand that, you know, just as I mentioned, in US when you are looking at the polling, you are only looking at the approval rating of the president or the vote share of Republicans or Democrats in totality, and looking at the vote share which way it is going up or going down. In India,
yeah, hi.
Okay.
Sorry, please.
Should I continue?
Yeah, please continue. Please.
I was getting some other voice. Okay. So, the spectacular debacle of the pollsters in 2004 actually comes with a caveat. You know, in 2004, I was doing it for the Star News, and we predicted 36% votes for the NDA and 35% votes for the UPA. And it actually came 36% for the NDA and 35% for the UPA. It was one of those odd elections with the party getting more votes actually ended up with getting lesser number of seats, which is a typical problem of the first past the post phenomena. So we got it totally wrong, even though from the survey perspective we got it totally right. So these kind of accidents happen in India or any other first past the post system, India especially, because it's not a national election. It's basically a culmination of 28 state elections, or 29 now after Telangana. So it's difficult. India officially is the most difficult country to poll. It's officially is, you know. We conduct poll, you know, we do a daily field work, we do work on CATI, and we have a weekly omnibus. We are calling every day in 12 languages, and my colleagues from Europe actually joke that, you know, what you do in India is kind of running a Eurobarometer every day, which is a fact. So it's difficult, but still we are trying, and I can safely say that the polling in India, at least in my case, I would not like to comment on others. We have certainly got more than 95% of our projections correct than wrong. You know, that means if we have done 100 elections, state or national or local in the last, say, 15 years, so I would say we have hardly gone wrong 5 or 6 times, not more than that. So it's fairly, I see it fairly okay. People remember only then when it goes wrong. people don't really remember when all the time it gets it right. So you talk to any politician, how many, whenever people ask me, oh, the polls go wrong, and I ask them, well, can you count on your hands how many times it went wrong? And they start counting. And when they start counting it, they really struggle very hard after getting 4 or 5. And then they go, oh, you always get it wrong. And then I say that, man, in the last 10 years, there have been 100-odd elections, and you have come up to only 5 which have got wrong. What happened to the rest of the 95 which were correct? So it always happens. Every election, you project any party that is winning, that party is happy with the polls. You project any party is losing, that party becomes really unhappy with the polls, and they say these polls are unbelievable, they should be banned, they are wrong, and all those kind of things. So it's all politics out there.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mr. Deshmukh. I think that's very enlightening, and I think because all of us depend upon the polls that we see to form our opinions and expectations. Thank you so much. And may I please request you to please with us, because we have now Professor Madhav Nalpat with us also, the second expert speaker in our series. Professor Nalpat, may I invite you for your opening comments and remarks on the election trends? I know you were in a studio, in a television studio, talking about something, and I've just pulled out of that. So could you please share your views?
Well, I just like to say that this is a very, very important election, because the reality is that over the last 8 or 9 years, the country has gone from a situation where it is going to be a superpower to a situation where in the next half a dozen years it will become a failed state. Institutions have degenerated, law and order is collapsing, corruption has risen to very high levels, and all this is happening in a situation where the people are getting more empowered through technology, through education, through access to information. So on the one hand, you have vibrant people. On the other hand, you have a ramshackle colonial kind of administrative structure, until finally the situation has come in which the people no longer accept that they're going to be ruled by this kind of a corrupt colonial structure. I want to point out, quite frankly, that very little has changed in the British left. Now, when the British were there, they ran the country by themselves with very little reference to what the people wanted, and they ran the country for their own benefit. Today, we have a class of people in India, politicians, officials, and their favorites, who are basically taking the cream unethically and undeservedly, and leaving the ordinary citizen the remainder. Indians have to go to the United States, Indians have got to go to Europe, Indians have got to go to South Africa to do well. They can't do it in India if they work honestly. So that is why this election is very important. If in the next 3 or 4 years, India does not revive itself administratively, and India does not reverse this course into a kind of a descent into a failed state, then things are going to be very gloomy for the country, which is why I think there's a general perception that this is going to be a very, very important election.
Thank you so much. Well, we have some questions coming in, and we had some questions earlier, and some are coming in during this chat as we are doing this conference. One question which went to Mr. Deshmukh also was, what is the probability that India will get a stable government after these elections? What do you think? Probability.
In my opinion, it is going to happen for a simple reason that if you look at the polls, let's say in Uttar Pradesh, if you look at the polls in different states, you'll see that the voters have gravitated to a single party that they believe will run the government efficiently. And they've always voted for change. In Uttar Pradesh, the Samajwadi Party gave a wrong impression that Akhilesh Yadav was the present and the future, and Mulayam was the past. Unfortunately, Mulayam is very much the present, and he could be the future also, so the voters were in a sense cheated. But the reality is the voters have voted for stability, and the voters have voted for change. So my own view is the voters are going to come to their own conclusion as to which party or group of parties can provide change from the present and stability in the governance, and they're going to go overwhelmingly for that party.
Thank you. Another question coming in domestic policy, or the domestic economic policy rather, what could be some 3 or 4, key initiatives of supposedly if it were to be a Modi government or an NDA-led government?
Well, I think, one thing would probably be a much lower level of taxation. Secondly would be a much lower level of regulation. And third would be a lower level of interest rates. I think it is very, very, very clear. For example, some of the close friends of Mr. Modi, like Dr. Subramanian Swamy, has thought of zero taxation. I don't expect it to go that far. But in the next 2 or 3 days, the BJP manifesto is going to come out. And I'm quite certain they're going to call for a slashing of income taxes. The fact of the matter is that lower taxes means higher taxation and higher revenue. Chidambaram showed that in 1997 when he slashed taxes very sharply and revenue was raised. Unfortunately, Chidambaram in his new avatar has raised taxes, raised regulation, and raised interest rates. So I think you're going to see a diminution in all that in the next government. The second, I think, is going to be more. Now, this present government is basically what government can do for the citizen. And how does it do it? Not by government raising revenue, but by government taking money from those who are raising revenue, more and more money from people, from less and less people, and trying to distribute it among the bulk of citizens. And quite obviously, most of it goes into a handful of pockets. I think the NDA is going to focus more on ensuring that manufacturing, services, etc. grow at a rapid pace so that the people in a sense can enrich themselves. The people can look after themselves rather than be looked after by a government which frankly is functioning on a very narrow base of taxation and a very narrow base of output.
Thank you very much for a very enlightened answer. And now moving a little bit from the domestic to the international arena or the global affairs, one key question which is coming up often among several of our guests and interested people is that the Indian American community, why is no party taking up or talking about foreign policy in this election? In their manifestos, so to say, or even otherwise? Do you think it's too domestic centered right now, whatever is happening in India? Is foreign policy not of high interest or much interest?
I don't think one can say that foreign policy is not of much interest. But although it is very, very true that the more you go to the voter, the less and less he thinks about foreign policy and the more and more he thinks about immediate issues. The good news, in the old days, Jawaharlal Nehru used to speak about saving the world, in fact saving the universe, and you still get elected. Today if a politician comes and says, I'm going to save the world, I'm going to save the universe, he's going to get defeated. So the public have become very demanding. The public say we want performance. We want performance in our own lives. We're not looking at some airy-fairy kind of scheme or some idealistic kind of picture, but we're looking at concrete results. So whether it's America, whether it's India, these two great democracies, the focus has to be on domestic policies. As Bill Clinton said, is the economy stupid? I think it's very, very clear in India also, it's very much the economy stupid.
Thank you, sir. Very fair. This leads to, I think, directly into another question. In case, if there's potentially a BJP-led government, do you see or does it have any big new ideas on US-India relationships or trade and economic strategic relations?
Well, unfortunately, this current government has been very abject vis-a-vis the United States. As a result, the United States administration of President Barack Obama is not taking this country very seriously. You look at the question of space, the cooperation in space, cooperation in high tech, and cooperation in, for example, in nuclear technology. In all these fields, Obama has actually rolled back what George W. Bush initiated with India. Had there been a continuation of George W. Bush policy, quite frankly, India and the US today would have been very close strategic allies. Unfortunately, Barack Obama has gone back to the Europeanist vision. And according to the Europeanist vision, you have Japan, for example, but in any international conference in Palestine, you involve Germany, but not Japan. It's always the P5 plus Germany. It's never the P5 plus Germany and Japan. Japan is out of it. So even Japan is excluded. The problem with Obama, he has followed the Clinton policy of a Europeanist approach. And that basically means only the European countries are, in a sense, good enough to be close strategic allies of the United States. And in that kind of a construct, India really does not count. I mean, you take chicken tikka, you go to the Indian American community, you may dress in a sari. These are totems and symbols. In fact, the Obama government has been a terrible disappointment to us in India who love the United States. In all these matters of high technology, space, nuclear, and various other fields, it has rolled back the George W. Bush advances. So a new government is going to say, look, any transaction has got to be on both sides. Any transaction has got to be fair. It's got to be at least 60-40, if not 50-50. And so the United States will have to quit, the United States administration will have to quit believing that Manmohan Singh's policy of 95% for the US and 5% for India is the future.
That leads me, sir, to a relevant, I think, the next question which one of our callers submitted to us 3 days ago when we were setting up this call. The question is, will a BJP or an NDA government, in case there is such a government, have a soft leaning towards Asia and Asian investors vis-a-vis or compared to the US?
Well, I'd like to say quite frankly that today the real pools of money are in Asia. The GCC countries, for example, are sitting on a huge pool of trillions of cash. It's another matter that much of this cash is now getting recycled via the United States, via New York, via London, via Frankfurt, via Zurich, but it's Arab money. East Asia is sitting on a pile of cash. The Chinese have recently said that they're ready to invest $300 billion in infrastructure in India. Chinese banks are ready to give soft loans to Indian companies, and several large Indian corporates take advantage of that. The Japanese are looking at giving hundreds of billions of dollars in assistance and in loans to India. So is Taiwan. So quite frankly, the money is in East Asia and in West Asia. So far as the United States and Europe are concerned, they are getting money from East Asia, from West Asia, and recycling it to India. I'd like to point to a very interesting fact. Indian intelligence agencies say, oh, if you get money from the GCC, there's some problem, it might be terrorist money. If you get money from East Asia, there will be some problem, it may be tainted by China. Now the same Hong Kong man, if he goes to New York and puts his money in a New York financial company, and that company comes to India via Mauritius, then that money is accepted. The same Arab, he goes to London and the money comes via London, it's accepted. The intelligence agencies say nothing, except that the country pays 4%, 5% more. So this is absurd. The reality of the situation today is, and a reality which I think those who are realistic, and I really certainly believe that the BJP under Narendra Modi is going to be a very realpolitik, realistic kind of a party. The realistic situation is it's West Asia and East Asia where much of the money is available to be invested in India.
Thank you so much. We have one question more coming in from Alok in Virginia, and I think after this question I'll pass on to my colleague and Chairman Sanjay, and then we'll have Mr. Deshmukh and Professor Nalpat together for some few questions. The question from Alok is, how can NRIs or the Indian American community, which could be NRIs or people of Indian origin, or impact the elections in India or contribute to the elections in India in a positive manner? And what can be that positive manner?
Well, I'd like to say that I find that the NRIs are very concerned about corruption and misgovernance in India. I'm happy to say that NRI websites, NRI chat shows are full of very strong detail about the problems facing India. They're not looking at India in a rosy way, and they should not look at India in a rosy way. They're looking at India through a very cold-blooded way, because NRIs know firsthand how good Indians are as people. They know firsthand Indians can be world beaters if given the right regulatory atmosphere, the right kind of logistical and governmental support. They know that because they've experienced that. They've been immensely successful, and they made the mother country proud of all of them by the immense successes they've had. not least United States. I mean, Satya Nadella, for example, whom I'm happy to say comes from my university in Manipal. He's now the head of one of the largest companies in the world, I mean, Microsoft. We are proud of Satya. We are proud of hundreds of NRIs who are doing so extremely well. So I think you're helping by drawing attention of the people of India to the problems that are there in India, by drawing attention to the corruption of some of our political leaders in a way which is so honest and straightforward, and frankly some of us here are afraid to do because of fear that the income tax will raid you or the ED will file some false case against you if you go against certain individuals in power. So I think NRIs are doing a tremendous amount, and I say we are all grateful to them for that.
Thank you, sir. And now I'll pass on to my colleague Sanjay. I believe Sanjay has a question or maybe a couple of questions from Mr. Deshmukh also, as well as Mr. Nalpat also. Sanjay, on to you, please.
Great. Thanks, Ravinder. Thanks, Yashwant, and thank you, Mr. Nalpat. Fantastic insight. I've learned quite a bit. These are two of the best in the business. Yashwant is India's #1 pollster, in my humble opinion, and Mr. Nalpat is obviously one of India's best analysts, and you heard very clear, concise opinion. He doesn't hold back. So just to summarize quickly, Yashwant, I had a question for you. Everybody talks the road to Delhi goes through Lucknow, goes through Patna, etc. And you also emphasize that generally not much is being talked about Maharashtra because even though I think that is an important state too, it has quite a few number of seats. Now obviously in Maharashtra you have MNS, BJP issue going on. Can you enlighten the viewers a little bit about Maharashtra, because a lot of our viewers also originate in some ways from Bombay, Pune, etc.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you picked up this one, because the general oversimplification is that UP and Bihar are the battleground states. But I think the biggest blow to Congress and the UPA is actually coming not from UP and Bihar, simply because they have nothing to lose over there. UP and Bihar are for BJP to gain, but it is nothing for the Congress to lose. I guess the biggest loss for Congress is going to come from Andhra and Maharashtra. In these two states, where, as I mentioned in my initial remarks, in 1977, these were the two states which, even though rest of the country, Indira Gandhi lost big time, but these two states were carried by Indira Gandhi big time. This time, Andhra and Maharashtra, UP and the Congress are on virtual decimation. They are being wiped out. When I say wiped out, Simandra and Telangana, they have gone for a toss. And in Maharashtra, they somehow managed last time purely because of the arithmetic equation of Shiv Sena's split of MNS and Raj Thackeray. But even that is not holding true anymore, for a simple reason that people of India have advanced to split voting phenomena. That means supporters of Raj Thackeray might very well keep on supporting him as the local level or state level elections. But if the parliamentary elections are happening, then in our numbers, our polls are finding that almost 80 to 90% of his supporters are actually rooting and pitching for BJP and Shiv Sena, because they see that formation as the challenger to Congress and NCP as the center is concerned. So the rudest of the shock for the Congress and NCP is going to come from Maharashtra. They should be considering themselves extremely lucky if together they manage to pull off in double figures.
Well, that's a very, very insightful point, and I'm sure our viewers appreciate that, because as you rightly said, everybody's talking about UP, and which is very important, but I think Maharashtra becomes an important place too. Professor Nalpat, I have a question for you. Ravinder asked about the whole issue of foreign policy, and I understand it's, as you said, it's the economy stupid. There was this whole issue, and this kind of ties into the economy also, that in India they talked, there was a frenzy at some point about talking about Swiss money and Swiss money. Now, I understand that is cutting across foreign policy, cutting across domestic issue. Has that, because our viewers do care a lot about transparency, honesty, corruption, has that been brought up? I know BJP talked a lot about it, this is before the elections. Has that been brought up at all, the issue of so much money sitting out in Swiss banks, at least alleged money? Can you please enlighten our viewers on that? Or
well,
listeners, sorry, not
I'd like to say quite frankly, I'd like to say very clearly that in my view, the BJP pre-Modi is a very different party to the BJP post-Modi. And if Mr. Modi comes as Prime Minister, the BJP is going to transform itself very significantly. The BJP, frankly, was not helpful at all in bringing back black money into the country. In fact, the leaders of the opposition, both Sushma Swaraj and Arun Jaitley, both of whom I know, I'm sorry to say, almost all the nasty legislation passed by the UPA, legislation which is restrictive, which hampers freedom, which slows down growth, many of these were passed with support of the leaders of the opposition, Sushma Swaraj and Arun Jaitley. So quite frankly, I as a citizen am extremely disappointed by the BJP's performance in Parliament and the so-called opposition party, except now after they have declared Narendra Modi as the Prime Ministerial candidate. Having said that, I'd also like to point out, the UPA government signed an agreement with Switzerland, which was not retrospective but prospective in nature. What does that mean? It means you're protecting everybody who has stored black money for the last several decades. And frankly, except for Ram Jethmalani and a handful of other people, and Ram Jethmalani, by the way, was thrown out of the BJP, nobody has talked about this. My own personal view is that it's very, very important, and I'm happy to say that people like Subramanian Swamy, people like other people, they're now active in the BJP. They're, I think, they're dealing quite a lot with Narendra Modi, and it is important for the government to go into this kind of a source, because just as China in the 1980s developed, because of Chinese money coming back, India can develop by Indian money coming back. This will have two steps. One is to say that you can have some kind of an amnesty. You have to have an amnesty. And the second thing is to say that those who do not take advantage of amnesty, you give a circular saying every deposit of an Indian or his relative, for example, if it can be shown that the relative doesn't have a high standard of income, that the relative is actually getting money from people in India. I know a lot of people in Singapore, for example, who are living like millionaires, who are unemployed because their relatives who are big officials in India send a lot of money to them and recycle that money. So we have to say that that kind of money will be taken over by the state. So there has to be the carrot and the stick. It has not been done by the Congress party. I hope it will be done by Mr. Modi, and I have every confidence that it is very likely to be done.
Well, very, very good insight, and I really appreciate your passion, because this is something of deep passion. I hear this question on Capitol Hill and others, because the United States has come down hard against UBS and other banks to get this issue sorted out with Switzerland.
Yeah, Sanjay, that's a good point. I know I want to make this point again. The United States has done well in leveling hundreds of millions of dollars in fines for activities by all these banks. The same banks do the same kind of speculative and unethical activities in India. And instead of even a 10 rupee fine, they get invited to meet Dr. Manmohan Singh. Chidambaram goes and meets them at various hotels. They get a royal red carpet treatment. So this is the difference between the United States and India. The United States cracks down on this kind of white-collar, unethical behavior. And in India, we frankly lay out the red carpet for them, because quite possibly they recycle money of politicians.
Well, great insight. Really appreciate it. I know we are run past time. I could talk to both of you for hours and hours, and maybe I will on a separate basis, but I'm sure our viewers have Really enjoyed this call. Thank you, Yashwant. I know you are somewhere in South Africa, in Johannesburg, for taking the time. Really means a lot to all of us around the world who are listening to you and your insight. We watch you on Times Now and other channels. And Professor Nalpat, you are on NewsX, and obviously a huge fan of your views. So thank you again, and look forward to
those who are
call.
interested in South African elections, they can also watch me over here at 10 and 7 because we have just released our South African poll details 2 days back.
Oh my God!
Sanjay,
you are truly going global.
Sanjay, I just want to say, yeah, terrific. I just want to say, Sanjay, I'm grateful to be here, and I think USINPAC is doing terrific work, and all power to you. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Professor Nalpat. I'll turn it over to John.
Thanks a lot for inviting Sanjay.
Thank you, Yashwant. Thank you. John?
Thank you again for joining our 2014 Indian Election Series conference call. This now concludes our call. We hope you join us next weekend at 11 a.m. Eastern for another call. You will receive dial-in instructions automatically if you've already signed up for a call previously. We look forward to seeing you on our Facebook page and through the many means of contacting USINPAC at usimpac.com. Thank you.